movement, right? I'm not saying climate change isn't real. I'm not saying the climate isn't important, and I'm not saying the world is not important.
Chad, is global
I'm
warming
saying the
real?
people who are propagating the climate change agenda don't give a shit about the world. What they want to do is tax you all into bankruptcy so they can buy all the farmland and own all of it. That's what they're doing now in Holland. That's what they're doing now in Germany. It's happening in Europe. There's big protests because they're coming along saying, because of the climate, we're going to put your taxes up 300% because that's going to somehow prevent climate change. You're all going to go bankrupt, and we're going to buy all the farms, and we're going to own it all. So every single movement, to some degree, has been corrupted, and there is always, even though there's usually a genuine motive, there is usually a corrupted, a hidden motive in nearly every single movement on the planet. Even the women's right motive, right? Let's look at, you can even break this one down. The reason that the Matrix propagates so heavily the idea that females should have careers is because, one, it doubles the tax base. There's twice as many people who pay taxes. Two, when you had the traditional nuclear family, then the woman would raise the children. And if the woman raises the children, then the family's values and ideals will be instilled inside of the children. But you don't want that because of your country. You want to own the future. You need to own the youth. How communism works. So what you want to do is send the women to work so the children spend all their time at school, and then you get to program their minds and you get to tell them what to think, because that's what happens. You see it now. Parents arguing with their own children based on what the children learn at school compared to what their parents believe.
Okay, bro,
so now,
I think that
Tate's coming along trying to program everybody's children. And the reason they're trying to make sure women are not at home is because that makes it more difficult to do. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason women's rights exist. I'm not saying that women's rights is a bad thing. I'm saying that every single movement has the genuine reason, and there's hidden reasons behind all of it. Same thing with the climate change exchange. There's always something hidden inside of it. So it's always a Trojan horse. So it's very, very difficult to just say any movement in and of itself, no matter how good it sounds, is pure. To sit here and say the green movement, who doesn't love the planet, right? What kind of psycho doesn't like the planet? Well, it's not about that. It's about the fact that the people who are propagating it actually have ulterior motives. So when you talk about movements as a whole,
wow.
Okay, so what? Okay.
No, Kai, that's some real ass shit.
This is what I call something called, most of the time, it's called a doomer mindset, right? So everything it's doomer. It's called doomer. It's doomer. This is legitimately what we call dooming. You're doomering. Where, every good thing is flawed and corrupt to a certain degree. Everything that is meant to be good is actually for bad. You named all the dog shit, but you failed to say or try to give us an alternative, or say how shit should work instead, or give something else. Give it a flip side.
I understand. I'm not a doomer at all. I'm saying, to be perspicacious as an individual, you need to pay attention that even movements that are a positive thing with positive outcome and positive intention, to some degree, are going to be corrupted with ulterior motives. They're going to sneak something in. They always sneak something in. Otherwise, if they couldn't sneak something in which benefited them as a whole, they wouldn't even allow the movement.
Nuestra nueva pila Duracell Copper Top con ingredientes Power Boost hace que este vehículo a control remoto vaya más rápido.
To gain traction. Why do some movements gain traction and some movements don't? Because the Matrix decides. The Matrix sits there and decides, we want Greta all over the news now because we want to talk about the climate. And then what we want to do is put taxes up because of the climate. At the same time, when we're talking about sea levels rising, we're going to buy a bunch of mansions on the beach, funnily enough. And nobody's going to give a shit because we know the sea level ain't going to rise. So there is always an ulterior motive. And you have to see beyond this, that most of the things that are propagated by the Matrix are not propagated for the actual intention. They do not give a shit about the planet. What they give a shit about is more control over the populace. And that's what they're doing now in Europe. If you could actually log out of a video game and look at right now, the Dutch farmers are taking all their tractors into the city and blocking the whole city because they put taxes up to the point where Google it. All the farms are going out of business. Every farm is going out of business, and they're all going to be bought by an international conglomerate, and he's going to own all of it. Who's knows who? They're going to own all the house. That's right,
dude.
Pause.
Climate change is New World Order bullshit. And this is the thing. You have to understand that all of these movements are a psyop, because if they're not a psyop, they won't allow them to happen. It's all a fucking psyop. So it's dangerous to say this is a pure good movement, this is a bad movement, etc. It's all psyop on every level. It's difficult. It's not an easy one.
Okay. In my opinion, the thing that's kind of wrong with you. You said it earlier. It's a good word.
Should I drink this?
I think that's like your narrative strategy that you do a lot, and it's causing me to severely lose brain cells. The problem is that you come in with an argument that makes sense in its format, right? Like the horse itself, it looks decent. and everybody, even myself, agree with the initial statement. Now you have a beautiful horse. It's not well carved. It's a beautiful thing. And then you load that motherfucker up with a bunch of fucking dog shit that nobody understands and the other people disagree with. But it doesn't matter anymore because they already bought into the horse, right? You're kind of Trojaning your way into this argument, which I think is kind of crazy. Like we don't even have the time to say, hey, that's dog shit. We're already 8 arguments past that point.
All right, we gotta get. No, it's time to get past this.
Don't say we. I ain't say that shit.
Hold on.
I ain't say that shit.
Hold on. Next topic. All right. XQ. I want to go back to a topic, and we never talked about this. And
Okay.